If I asked you why you want to finally start that idea this year, you'd probably give me a very cute answer that's a little bit surface level, something that sounds like, I really just want to help people. I want to make a big impact in the world, or I don't know, I just feel called by God to do this thing, and you'd kind of just leave it there. If I asked you what was the assignment behind this idea, you'd probably stare at me for a little minute and be like, what the heck is this girl talking about? And then you'd start describing the idea again. If I asked you what was the first step you plan on taking and when you plan on taking it, you'd probably say something like, still praying on it, girl. Maybe sometime in January or February, even though you and I both know that's not a real step one, and that's definitely not a real date on the calendar. The reality is, if you're not clear on any of these things, what makes you think that you're actually going to see it through this time? What makes you actually believe that you're going to start the idea that God has given you this year? That is why in this episode, I am walking you through the ultimate playbook to starting the idea that God has given you this year. We're going to talk about the reason why you haven't actually started yet, or why you haven't continued in that thing. We're going to talk about the part of your God idea that's probably missing. We're going to talk about the step that makes every other step that you're going to take very clear. And then we're going to talk about the only commitment that separates the dreamer from the doer. Now, by the end of this episode, you won't just feel inspired to start the thing again, but you'll actually know what to do next and know how to start in a way that you can realistically follow through on this time. So welcome to the Girl You Are Called podcast. But first, let's run it back a little bit because, girl, I got a story to tell you, okay? Because when I think about the idea that God gave me, I always go back to circa 2017. I was in community college at the time, very brand new in my faith. I don't think it was even a year yet. But all I really wanted at that time was a creative outlet, something that really allowed me to express my heart and connect with other like-minded Christian girls trying to walk this thing out. And I wanted to be able to express myself in a way that was healthy and that kept me close to God and did not pull me away from him. And the idea that came to my heart and my mind was to start creating content online and building community through that. So I started with a platform that I was most familiar with and that I loved consuming content on to begin with, YouTube, right? I had fun, I experimented, and eventually through that process, I found a position that I really wanted to take up, right? I really wanted to start talking about my faith through the lens of my own story. I literally even built a whole brand world around it called Christian Cup, and that ultimately grew into a podcast and an Instagram presence where I was interviewing people who were also walking in their faith. Girl, it was a whole little thing, a whole little moment. You cannot find it anywhere on the internet now, but it was definitely a thing. But the reality is, or the truth is that even though I started at that time, I didn't really continue it. In fact, it was a lot of starting and stopping, a lot of having the motivation and the energy to go, and then ultimately crashing and burning everything down. I quit ultimately because I didn't always feel like I was qualified to do this thing or that I had something that was good to say when it came to this whole thing or this whole position, right? To be quite frank with you, I was overthinking everything. I let fear get super duper loud in my mind. Perfectionism had a chokehold over me, okay? And it convinced me that I really needed to be more something, right? I had to be more of something before I could do or speak on anything. Like I had to be more of something before I can actually pursue this thing that I really, really desired to do. And now here we are almost 10 years later, girl, brand new into 2026, and I'm giving content creation and this community building idea another go. But this time, time, I have to posture myself differently because I don't want the same start and stop, crash and burn cycle to continue again. This time, I've decided that, you know what? I'm going to be building in real time and in tandem with you because I know you're probably going through this and struggling with this as well. And I'm doing this because we're going to actualize our God-given ideas while also recognizing, because this was the big problem, I did not recognize my human condition. This time, we are going to recognize our human condition. We are limited people. We have nervous systems. We have a capacity. We have a natural wiring. The Bible even tells us that God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. I did not take all of these different elements into consideration, but even more than that, as I consider all of these types of things, I'm going to implement it in a way with a plan that actually honors all of those things, right? Because to be honest with you, girl, my vision has always been to live off of my creativity. I have always loved the idea of just being able to create and being able to just live off of that, be able to monetize and profit off of the things that I'm putting out into the world. And honestly, now that I'm approaching 30, girl, your girl is 29, just turned 29. Now that I'm about to turn 30 in about 10 or so months, I just don't see myself delaying this dream any longer. But I can't just be a dreamer. I have to become a doer, right? As I look at my life and what I see in 2026, I had to be honest with myself. The problem was never really starting for me. I've always been able to start. The real struggle was continuing, showing up past my excitement, showing up past the planning, showing up past the moment when it stopped feeling very cutesy and very fun and very aesthetic and really started requiring the discipline of consistency. So girl, I get it, right? We have these ideas, these things that God has given us to do, that we've been sitting on, some of us for years, that God has given us to pursue and to do. And if there's anything that I've really learned from that almost 10-year gap between getting the vision in the first place and actually beginning to steward it properly, it's this. I didn't stop doing the thing that the Lord has called me to do because I wasn't called, right? We all know that we feel this pull, this draw, this invitation to do something. The biggest reason that I stopped was because I was trying to pursue this big God idea in a self-sourced capacity. I kept on feeling like I had to do it. I had to accomplish it. I had to make this thing happen. I was the one that was driving all of these creative ideas. It was me. I had to make it happen. Like nobody was going to do it for me. I had to do it. But that self-sourced capacity really limits the move of the Holy Spirit through this as well. I had a vision, but I didn't have the support system, the Christ dependence, the clarity, or the simple steps, girl, that my capacity actually needed to be able to continue on, that I actually needed to be able to continue to pursue this thing one step at a time, or in a way that just allowed me to just repeat the same action over and over and over again. I needed a way of moving through life and the goals that I set for myself in a way that really honored how God designed me and how God wired me, but also in a way that kept me very dependent on Him. And that's why before you sprint into the new year with this idea, right? Or another idea, whatever it is, like if it's a new idea or the same idea that you've been holding on to, we're going to have to walk through this together. The 4 things that would have changed everything for me back then. These 4 things are really like a foundation that will help you continue on with the idea that the Lord has given you. But it ultimately starts with knowing that idea. So keep that idea at the forefront of your mind as we walk through this. Now that you have it in your mind, girl, let's go ahead and jump into it. The real reason you haven't started yet is because you haven't really asked yourself why enough. And here's what I mean, right? You have to ask yourself why until you get to the root of your reason as to why you're pursuing this thing. There's a method called the why method. And this is where you literally ask yourself why 7 times to get as deep as you possibly can go. Because it's like the deeper that you go, the more rooted or anchored you are to be able to pursue this thing, right? And so Most of us stop at the first why. And the first why, to be honest with you, is pretty cute, right? I want to make more impact, right? It's pretty cute. It's surface level a little bit. Sometimes it's a little ego adjacent, right? Like it's mostly about what you want for yourself. But when you keep asking yourself why this is, and you go all the way down to that level 7, you keep on going until you get past your desire for validation, your desire for visibility, your desire for income. When you go past these things, you will hit a God-rooted reason that you can actually build your life and your work on. Your level 7 why is the place where your calling becomes more intimate and personal to you. Your capacity gets honored because you're now really starting to think about the natural ability that you actually have. And the steps towards your vision become more sustainable in the process, because the deeper your why goes, the more dependent you become on the person who gave you the idea in the first place, and the less likely you are to actually spiral when the first sign of resistance hits. Because truth be told, girl, resistance is going to come. It will hit you like you just got smacked in the face by a wall. But your real why keeps you from quitting. So let's do a little bit of an exercise. What is the idea that the Lord has given you? Why? Why do you want to do it? Then ask yourself why again. Then ask yourself why again. And then ask yourself why again. Keep on going. You can literally take out a notebook and doing this, or you can pull out your phone, get into your note app, and just keep on asking yourself why, and continue to ask yourself why, because that is what's going to really anchor you as you continue to pursue this thing. And again, keep you from quitting. Now, the next thing that we need to address is that there is probably a part of your God idea that you're missing. And I believe it is the assignment behind the idea. I feel like sometimes we can kind of interchangeably use God idea and assignment and things like that, and just kind of think it's the same thing. We might think that a podcast is the assignment. We might think that a membership is the assignment. We might think that starting a newsletter is the assignment. We might think that content creation is the assignment. We might think that launching the business is the assignment. But an idea and an assignment are two different things. The idea is the thing that you see in your mind's eye. It's the thing that the Lord has dropped and said, hey, this is what I want you to do. The assignment is what the Lord is kind of trusting you to do with that thing. I want you to think of your assignment as the specific task or duty that God is entrusting you to fulfill for His purposes in somebody else's life. And when you look at your idea through the lens of assignment, you're going to see that everything kind of begins to shift, because it's not just a podcast anymore. There is a message in that podcast that God is trying to get you to put out into the world. And that is the reason why you need to pursue this idea. And so instead of asking yourself, like, how do I actually make this work? How do I start the podcast? Or how do I launch the business online? Or how do I create an art shop? Or how do I start a product-based business, and all of these types of things? You need to ask, what need is God calling me to meet for other people? And when I say need, I don't mean for you to save the world, or for you to solve every single problem, or end world famine, or stop climate change, and all of these types of things, okay? I'm talking about the real gap that is happening, actively happening in somebody else's life, that maybe your story or your skill sets are designed to speak into, are designed to serve somebody in. So maybe it's a woman who feels very alone in the thing that she's being called to do. Maybe the need is somebody who needs clarity, encouragement, some direction, community. Maybe it's a version of you from a few years ago who needs somebody to go first. People just need to see you go first. What is the need? Define the need, right? That's the assignment. Meeting a real need in a real way in a real person's life through the idea that the Lord is giving you. This podcast is not just a podcast. Me being on YouTube is not just me being on YouTube just for the sake of creating content. The assignment behind it is I really want to encourage all of you, including my own self, to follow through on the things that the Lord has called us to do, to help us to recognize that, girl, you are called, okay? You are called, and you were required to answer that call in the first place. You are called, you're required to answer that call, you're required to pursue that call, and you're required to actualize that call in your life. But you don't have to do that by yourself. You can do that within the context of community. You can do that alongside the help of the Holy Spirit. You can do that while totally depending on the Lord, okay? And you can do that within the confines of your actual capacity as a human being, girl, or how God has uniquely wired you. The assignment behind the podcast is to get you to recognize the call that is on your life and to pursue it, to go after it. So once you're able to see the assignment behind the thing that the Lord is calling you to do, that idea that is on your mind, again, it shifts for you because you now begin to remove the pressure off of like doing all of the things, figuring out how to make it work, to really beginning to steward that work well because you understand that there's a particular assignment behind it, which leads us to the step that makes every other step clear. At some point, we have to humble our vision down to step one. And the thing is that once we know the assignment, this is kind of where we get stuck, right? This is where the whole starting to do all of this research on YouTube happens, where you're like, how do you do this? How do you start the podcast? What kind of equipment do we need to get? How do we do this? How do we do that? Like, we can get caught up in all of these types of things. And then next thing you know, we try to plan out steps 1 through 57 before we can even begin to take step number 1. And I get it, because as visionary women, I feel like this is our default. We see the big picture. We see the big vision. We see the mountain that we're going to be climbing. But actualization, like the fulfillment of the calling that is on your life, it happens one step at a time. One obedient, capacity aligned step at a time. So instead of asking yourself, how do I even build this whole thing? And you start doing all of these searches on Google and YouTube, what you really need to ask yourself is, what is the smallest, simplest step I can take right now? Step 1 for you might literally be writing the first script. Maybe it is setting up a camera. Maybe it is opening up a Google document. Maybe it is sending an email. Maybe it is collaborating with somebody who is trying to do something. Maybe it's reaching out to somebody who's doing what it is that you want to do. Maybe it's literally sitting down to think about who you actually want to serve, who's your target audience. Whatever it is, what is the first thing that you can practically do right now? Either way, what I have found is that the genius is that once you take step number 1, clarity for step number 2 just kind of naturally shows up. If you know that step number 1 is to reach out to this person, then you know that after you reach out to them, maybe it's time to set a time on your calendar to meet with them in person, right? Or meet with them virtually. If you know the idea is for you to start content creation, maybe your step 1 is to determine what kind of content creator you want to become. Maybe you want to be a lifestyle creator. Maybe you want to just create content around a specific niche. Maybe you want to become a podcaster. The first step is literally determining the type of content creator you want to be. And then naturally, step number 2 tells you what's the next step that I need to take in order to actualize this thing. So if I want to become a podcaster, naturally, the next thing is I have to get a mic. Then I have to determine what is the podcast recording system that I'm going to be using. Then I have to determine, do I need a camera or can I just use my phone? Then I need to determine so on and so forth. It's like once you take that first initial step, step number 2 naturally flows after that. You naturally are able to see and determine what the next step should be. Again, you don't need the entire staircase. Like, you don't need to know how to get all the way to the top of the mountain. You just need to climb that first step and trust that the next step, like once you're in the first step, step number 2 is going to become very clear to you. And then finally, the last thing that we need to really understand is that, listen, the only commitment that separates a dreamer from a doer is literally choosing a start date that you will honor. Literally put a date on the calendar, girl. Open up your Google Calendar and select a date and put the date on it. Put the task, set the event, okay? Make it a thing. Not just saying, oh, it's going to happen sometime in February, or it's going to happen sometime in June. It's going to happen sometime, or no, I'm just going to do this when I'm ready. No, girl, we need to set a real date, a hardcore date. Because once you choose a date, you're not just putting something on the calendar. You're making a commitment to God, because this is the idea that he gave you. You are making a commitment to your level 7 why, because it is deeper than just the service level thing of like, I just want to make an impact in the world. You are making a commitment to the assignment that God has given you. You are committing yourself to this thing. But as you're choosing this date, you're choosing a date that actually honors the capacity that you actually have. So I want you to really sit and ask yourself, okay, what is the path of least resistance for me? What would make this thing feel doable instead of draining? This really reminds me of my coach and my brand strategy client. She is a business owner for moms who are doing business, and her whole brand is all about how moms literally just do business different. And the key differentiator for Kay is that she's all about building a bare minimum business model. You need to build a business model that is the bare minimum for you. What is the path of least resistance, okay, for you to actually do this thing is what I'm getting at here. For me, when it comes to content creation, I get thousands of content ideas all the time. Literally, I was on a brand clarity call with one of my current brand strategy clients. And after I was done with that call, I posted something on my stories. And then I had this epiphany of a question that somebody might ask. And I started jotting down this other idea. Like, I'm always getting ideas, just doing the little mundane things of building my business online. As I'm building the things, I'm always getting content ideas. As I'm consuming content, girl, I get content ideas. When I'm watching movies, I get content ideas. Point is, I always have an idea, okay? But the reality is, my nervous system can only handle so much. My nervous system, my capacity, honey, can only handle one project at a time. And yes, I literally try to treat every YouTube video as one project because it forced me to focus on one step at a time. It forced me to focus on putting a date on something. Like, you can have all of these ideas and things like that and do nothing with them. They never go anywhere apart from being in your notes app on your phone or in a notebook. Literally, this is my second brand notebook of the year. Like, my ideas would sit there for forever if I didn't treat every single idea as its own project, whether it's a content idea or a business idea. I have to treat every single idea as its individual project because it's going to force me to focus. So I've learned to pick one idea, commit to it, and see it to completion before moving on. Like, I can't allow myself to pursue any other idea until I've completed this first one, okay? And that's my path of least resistance, so that first of all, I don't get overwhelmed. I don't start experiencing anxiety because it just feels like so much is on my plate. I don't have this pressure to have to show up for a bunch of different things. I'm not spread thin. I'm focused on literally one single thing at a time. And I'll even give a little bit of insight on how I create content. I used to be the kind of person who liked to batch content. I would batch 4 podcast episodes and create this one time every single month, and I'm able to put out my content for the month that way. But I started to get overwhelmed at the idea of having to come up with 4 whole ideas, sit down and record 4 whole videos, edit a video every single week, and then having to repeat this cycle again. That started to create anxiety in me. It started to dumb down the ideas that I did have to where I wasn't giving each idea the energy and the focus that it deserved. I started hating having to come up with ideas. I started hating content content creation, when the reality is my big idea, my big vision, my God vision is content creation. So I had to do it differently. So now I create in advance. I'm not batch creating anymore, but because I want to build a habit of consistency and look forward to this idea of content creation every single week without the pressure to perform every single week, I create content a month in advance. So for example, it's January right now. As you're listening to this episode, I recorded this in December. Literally, it is December 10th. This video is going out the week after January 6th. I am recording content for a month ahead. And every single week, I give myself one day to come up with the idea that I want to create content and script it out, flesh it out. I also leverage AI in this process to brainstorm and have AI prompt me with good thought-provoking questions that can help me flesh out my script. The following day, I sit down to actually record this content. Okay. And then the day after that is when I edit. And then I schedule it for literally 4 weeks in advance. And that is the system that I plan on using because I want to literally dedicate my focus, my energy, and my time to one project at a time, one podcast episode at a time, one piece of content that's a whole project at a time. And another cool part of that is that I'm not just thinking about the podcast content, I'm thinking about my podcast content as the centerpiece of my whole content ecosystem. So my newsletter is going to be a branch of whatever it is that I talk about on my podcast, but we might go a little bit deeper. And I'm going to tell people to go watch the YouTube video as well. I'll have regular social media content on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube shorts that surround this topic on the podcast. They're going to be their own individual little pieces, but they're all centered around this one individual nucleus, this one project idea for my video. And again, when I think of stuff in projects for me and things like that, when I see my videos or my ideas as projects, it helps me to focus. It helped me to commit, and it helped me to see it to completion before moving on. That is why the path of least resistance will also create a path or a rhythm of faithfulness in your life. So I say all this to say, girl, choose a start date that honors you. Choose a start date that honors the season that you're in. Choose a start date that honors your schedule. Choose a start date that honors your nervous system, your capacity, and the realities of your life. And when that date comes, show up imperfectly, show up obediently, show up with what you have, and just begin. Begin. Because guess what? The Lord loves to see the work begin. Okay? Now, before we wrap this episode up, I want you to drop your vision for 2026 in the comment section. What is that God idea, right? What is the idea that the Lord is nudging you to start or restart or take seriously? Like, what is that thing that the Lord is telling you to do? And girl, you don't have to write an essay, though. I love reading a good little cutesy paragraph in the comment section, okay? But I just want you to let me know, what is this idea that you're going to commit to begin this year? I genuinely want to read through your thoughts, your idea, and also pray with you, girl. Touch and agree with you that you're gonna actually pursue this thing this year. The second thing that I want you to do, girl, is if this video has helped you, I need you to go ahead and check out the last one that I actually posted. It's all about why you keep ghosting the ideas that the Lord has given you and how you're going to stop in 2026. It was so good, so juicy, so meaty. Like, you need to go run it back and watch that right now, because if you've been literally stuck in these start and stop cycles and stuff like that, and you've been beating yourself up for not being consistent enough, this video will really explain to you why it happens and then how you can break out of it so that you can actually finally move forward this year. All right, girl. I love you with the love of Jesus. I will see you next week for our next episode, TTYL.